hello everybody. My name is Tim Cormier. I am the Director of Lab Validation Program for the PCI Council.
And my name is Berny Goodheart, and I work with Tim and his team.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about the skimming prevention's best practice guidance. The skimming prevention best practice guidance has been out for a while, but it has some very good information. And we're just going to cover a few of the things that are in the program guidance document today. So we're going to talk a little bit about logical attacks. We're going to talk about some physical attacks. And then we really want to talk about some prevention and training that can help you to avoid some of these problems.
So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about logical attacks. These attacks might be remotely done, or they might be internally done within your organization. And it doesn't preclude the insider attacks, where the bad actor is actually using your store network from a special room, a break room, or a rest room. Even though that sounds like the science of movies, it does actually happen in the real world. So the use of secure communications is really important. We all know that at home we hopefully use passwords on our routers to make sure that the neighbors aren't peering into our networks. And we want to do the same in our business. We want to make sure that our networks are secure. You don't want to be using open networks like you do in, say, Starbucks or Nero's. You want to be able to use a network that has a password, hopefully use two-factor authentication, to make sure that the networks are secure. What you also need to do with your terminals is you need to look for performance changes. What I mean by that is that you're used to how they operate, so you wouldn't, for example, put your card in the device and it would normally ask for a PIN, but if it comes back and it says, please swipe your card, you think, well, that's not normal, especially in Europe. So keep aware that these things, if the performance of the terminal is not right, that could be a problem that you need to look into.
Yeah, that's right. So as we have gone as we've been progressing through this program, we've noticed that magstripe still is out there. So as chip cards become more secure, as NFC becomes more secure, the first thing the bad guy is going to do is they're going to disable those functions and drop back to the least secure transaction possible.
So some logical attack mitigations are you should look at the interfaces on the terminal. Make sure that they don't look as if they've been tampered with. Also, that the data is encrypted using multi-factor authentication, if possible, through the interfaces. And this allows the terminals to validate any files too. You want to make sure that if you're using encryption, that any data that comes into the terminal, files, for example, updates and things like this, are authenticated by having signed data. So the firmware must check when it runs every 24 hours that this is correct. Card holders are unfamiliar with the operation, but cashiers, the girls on the tills, can notice changes in the device. We find actually that in reality is that they just sit down to the desk, the cash machine, and the terminal happens to be there, and that's it. They log in, and the stuff starts coming down the trolley. But really, we should be looking at the terminal. We should train them to train all the cashiers to look at these terminals, to, look out for things that are not right. And we need to reduce the exposure of customer data on the store network. And please see the PCI DSS, for example, for that to come into effect.
Now let's talk about physical attacks. Physical attack, this is the fun part of the presentation. Physical attacks actually show you some of the attacks. These are taken from the guide that actually we've seen in the real world. So the first one we see are overlay attacks. And those are, as they say, they're overlays. You simply put something over the buttons and you're able to capture the PIN. So what we see here in the first slide, or the first picture, is somebody just put a simple overlay over the device. You pull it back, you see the wires. We even see these on touch screens. So this is not just regular terminals, but also in touchscreens, and we'll see overlays on those also. The next two overlays that you see are where somebody has actually modified or have manufactured an overlay of the device that looks exactly like the device itself, and so it just simply overlays, and then as you put the card in, it reads the magnetic stripe, and it can capture the pin because there are still clear text pins in some instances that go between the keyboard and the chip card. So they're able to put that in there. You can buy these online. You can print them via 3D. People do injection mold. There is a whole industry out there. You just tell them what you want to attack, and they'll manufacture a device overlay for you. Okay, we've seen devices being modified where they cut a hole in it and they put stuff in using cameras to read pins. We all know cameras are getting smaller and smaller. shims still seem to be a big problem, especially in ATMs and fuel dispensers. A shim is just a simple board that fits inside of the chip reader, and it goes between the card and the actual reader themselves. So when you put anything in there, it captures all the information going to and from the card and the terminal. You sometimes see wires coming out, so you want to be looking for wires. And then there are keyloggers. What you see here is a simple keylogger. If you were to look at it, you wouldn't think nothing of it, but they just modified the cable. They've added extra pins, a little electronics, and now you have a keylogger. So every key that's pressed on that device is being echoed down that line to probably a reader somewhere that's able to capture that. We also see those in touchscreen devices also. All right. And, you know, with physical attacks, we still see those on ATMs and fuel dispensers. Why ATMs? That's where the money is. So you can actually go out and put a false cover on front of an ATM. You just tell them what kind of ATM you're attacking, and people will actually go out and tell you that. But I want to give you a cautionary tale here. So we did have an issue that we were made aware of, that there was somebody that was at an ATM machine, noticed something was a little odd, and started kind of monkeying around with the device, looking at it, thinking, hey, this isn't right. Maybe there's a skimmer on there. What he didn't know, there were two criminals in a van keeping an eye on that ATM machine. As soon as he started messing with that, they jumped out of the van, they attacked the individual, took the front cover off, and drove away. So if you do see someone, we're all technical people, and we do like kind of getting off on this type of stuff. But please don't take it on yourself, all right, to investigate these things. You should notify the merchant. The merchant should have a security policy on what to do and how to proceed if there is an issue, and then it should be handled by the authorities. Please don't take it upon yourself and to take this type of action on. But it's not all bad news. So there is sort of an arms race happening in this skimming prevention. So what we have here is a tool that was created by Target. It's called Target's Payment Encryption Tool. And it's a very simple 3D printed device that essentially acts like, well, really like a shim. So they put this device inside the card slot, and if it fits, like you see on the picture on the right there, you know there's no overlay. But if it doesn't fit, you know there's a problem with the device. This is something that can be printed out and manufactured for they've got it for their individual terminals that they deploy. They distribute it to their employees. Doesn't take any formal training other than know what to do if something goes wrong. And it's a really kind of elegant solution. They also make this, there's a address there that you could reach out to them and ask them if you want some more information about this tool. We've also seen issues now where vendors are making their terminals more secure. We have an instance now where the pins in the ATM, or pins when you put the card slot in, the pins retract into the device. Some of those pins are now protected by shielding that will tamper the device. And we've even seen where the pins are now pressure sensitive, so that if the pressure is not right when the pins drop to the card, it knows that there's something in between. It'll actually trigger a tamper at that point too. So as the bad guys keep getting better, the vendors keep getting better, and again, we're still working on that arms race. But how do you protect against these? The easiest way is to encrypt your data. If your data is encrypted, they can't get a hold of it. PCI has a program that we use called Secure Read and Exchange of Data, which is SRED, the purpose of which is to encrypt the data as close to the point of interaction as possible. So at the mag stripe, at the chip reader. So that information is then encrypted and is encrypted within the device before it gets to other processes within the terminal itself. Make sure all your files are signed. Bernie said that. Again, this is important. Make sure everything that goes in the terminal is signed. You don't want to be able to put a rogue application in your terminal and then it grabs the resources, starts scraping memory, or even ransomwares the device. Secure all your interfaces in and out of the device. Again, you want to provide sort of a defense in depth type of scenario where the attacker has to then continually overcome different types of mitigations in order to actually get any meaningful information from the device. And physically check your terminals frequently. There is probably a number of merchants out there that have never looked at their terminal since the day they installed it. So it's something that you should do regularly. Have your customers, if you interface with customers, make sure that they have a program to check their terminals to make sure that nobody's monkeyed with them, nobody's added things to them, wires, etc. The other thing, secure your terminals. Mount them to the counter. We have a lot of terminals that are handheld, which is fine, but at the same time, if you can, secure those terminals. Train your employees. I can't stress this enough. If your employees are the ones using that every day, they should be able to trigger when something is wrong. So if they see something, have them say something, and develop a security policy, a simple security policy, for those employees so that they know what to do in case of a possible tamper situation, and that the next person knows what to do, and so on. It doesn't have to be very long. It doesn't have to be very detailed. I would keep it as short as possible, but at least have it available and make sure your employees know that what to do in case they detect a possible an attack. Okay, so this is the skimming prevention guidance document. You will find it on our PCI website under documents. There is a lot of information, a lot more than what we've covered here. We actually go into how to do a training program, how to go about checking your terminals, how to do some documentation, how to do some training. There's a lot more attacks in there if you want to look at more actual physical attacks and logical attacks. So that document is available out there. It's for free. Feel free to download that. Just know that PCI has 67 documents in 24 categories, free to download on our website. So this is just one of many that is available to you all. PCI also has a number of merchant resources available. In addition to that, PCI has a Payment Data Security Essentials training, which is videos and other training. Terminal security policies are available for each and every POI device that PCI lists. So when PCI lists a terminal, the vendor must provide a security policy. That security policy just simply gives some basic information about the terminal. What encryption is in the terminal? What to do if there's a tamper? What to do when you receive a terminal? How do you change the password? Some very basic information that could start a security policy for a merchant out there that doesn't have one today. And with that, we thank you.